In 1979 is when I joined the team. Back then, we did not have the help of helicopters. We did not have cell phones. We did not have instant geographic pingers that identified where people were. Almost all searches were long field slogs, taking up a lot of time and a lot of energy just to try and find the subject.
Most of our calls come in usually at night time or in the early morning when it's dark, mainly because the subject is overdue, the reports have been made, the team has been activated. So we're searching at night. In winter, it's tough searching at night because one, it might be snowing, two, we could be going into potentially avalanche dangerous area, and quite often we're not going anywhere near a regular track, we're going into cliffs and ravines. So the very nature of our work is dangerous.
In the early days, searches were basically on foot. We went out wherever was necessary. If we found the subject, we brought them in wherever necessary. If they were injured, it was a terrible ordeal, putting them in a stretcher and carrying them out wherever necessary.
Searches frequently occur, through somebody has been out all day, it's getting into the evening, they haven't returned home. Family calls the RCMP to find out if they're where they are. Cars located in a parking lot on top of the mountain. And then we would get called in, often as late as 11 o'clock at night. It's getting dark, you've been up all day already at work, whatever. And now you have to go out and start looking for somebody.
And most of the time, the calls come in late in the weekend, usually 10, 11 o'clock at night. So you're out there in the middle of the night, sometimes all weekend looking for people, and it's quite a commitment for the people that volunteer.
Back in probably the early 80s, I was first introduced to human tracking with the team.
Someone noticed that human tracking was a skill that the U.S. Border Patrol had. So on the phone, U.S. Border Patrol, we need some training in human tracking. Who can you offer?
Well, there was a fellow down there by the name of Joel Harden who was using probably ancient tracking techniques, but these are tracking techniques that we had never thought of.
He went to every person, he says, what do you want to be? What do you want out of this course? What do you want out of this course? And everybody says, well, I want to learn, I want to do this, I want to do that. No pun against them. Well, Joel asked me, and I looked him square in the eye, and that's how serious I took the brewer training. And I said, Mr. Harden, I want to be better than you. And I thought for sure I was going to get thrown out. And he said, Metro, that's the best thing I've ever heard.
It sounded interesting to me, but I didn't have a lot of faith in it. But then this guy laid out some stuff like what he could do in the way of tracking just amazed all of us. And so then I was kind of a believer. I thought, oh, there is something to this.
Literally looking from step to step to step, looking for a small broken leaf or looking for a piece of the ground where the ground had been turned over and being able to determine how long ago might that have happened.
It amazed most of us to see that a person could follow a person through the bush so accurately as Joel did, and really emphasized to us that there's a role for this in search and rescue. Then it evolved from that to the UTS system, and then there's a couple different levels now. So there's the track aware, and there's I think novice tracker and senior tracker and tracking instructor.
I could see through Joel Harden's training. I combined the human tracking with dog tracking, which multiplied my ability to read the area as well as read the dog, which double whammy.
I certainly think that human tracking has a place in search and rescue, what we do. It certainly augments my working with the dog quite well. The dogs quite often will pick up a track, but if you go up Seymour, Cypress, Grouse, there's lots of tracks around, and so just having that track aware, I can have the dog follow the track for a while, and once I see a good footprint, I can kind of rule the track out and say, no, this isn't who we're looking for, or yeah, there's a possibility it is, and so it kind of heightens your, the possibility of following that.
And those techniques are still being taught in the same way. It's one of those things that hasn't really changed, because sometimes all we have is a single footstep in the mud. We know the size of their boot. If we know the kind of boot, we even know what the tread looks like. And if we can say, hey, that was this person, they went this way, it eliminates everywhere else. And then we can focus our people where we need them.
What we were having difficulty with is trying to determine what is the best attraction device that somebody who is lost could use and the searchers could use.
I knew when we were running searches, particularly in, say, the heavy woods you have around here, you really can't cover much area and you really don't have much detection. I think there are not many places in the world that are really much worse than the North Shore Mountains. Maybe the Hawaiian bush or some New Zealand, but generally this is a very tough place to find people in if they're in the woods.
Martin Caldwell, Lions Bay SAR, and the students at UBC, the engineering students, conducted a sound sweep trying to determine what provides the best sound for sending to the person we're looking for and what the person could have with them to respond to our initial call saying, we're here, North Shore Rescue, we want to find you.
What we came out with was about 50 little AM radios, like cheap little radios like this, and we put them on CBC AM because they were talk, or not music, talk, right, all the time. And these were put on about a fifth of the time as we put out, and they were turned on to like the highest volume that these little transistor radios would do, And the idea was that that would allow us to get an idea of how far away you can hear that voice. So that would be as if someone was calling to you.
We did all kinds of things trying to get the people who were sitting in the woods and they were recording. What did you hear? Well, I heard a whistle, I heard that. And we did the same thing on our side, because if they did hear something, they were to respond so that we'd say, oh, okay, somebody did yell, that sort of thing.
It became obvious very quickly that, no matter whether people were standing, sitting, lying, whether they had bright colors or dark colors or camouflage colors, sound was infinitely better at being detected by people. They could detect them way beyond what they could see.
So after a weekend of doing that, a number of the SAR groups from the Lower Mainland were there. The Martin Caldwell and the engineering students analyzed all of the data they had. And yes, you can use your voice. The question was, what would people take with them that we can encourage them to take with them? And that was a whistle.
And from the distances and the measurements we had there, we knew how far we could hear people. And then that meant by doing a bunch of spreadsheets, I could work out how frequently we would have to call them, which was a whistle blast, and they could respond. And so very rapidly, we had a very easy tool that we knew would give us typically an 80% chance of finding the person by sound and covering 3 to 5 times the area compared to a standard visual sweep.
Oh, it was tremendously exciting. We were wandering up north of Mount Seymour in the woods in what we thought was a very low probability area. And we thought it was just going to be a long trudge into the middle of nowhere and then back out again. And we were walking along through the night, blowing our whistles periodically and listening for a shout or something. And after 2 or 3 hours of nothing, blew the whistle, and suddenly there was a whistle in response about 100 yards away. We found him sitting in the middle of a trail with a little campfire saying, my gosh, I'm so glad to see you guys. I'm out of food, I'm out of water. I didn't think anybody'd be way out here trying to find me. It was worth it.
The whistle has a life of its own. It's on the 10 essentials. People put them on their jackets. Lots of hikers carry them. The hiker tree program hands them out to the children. It's cottoned on like crazy. Everyone wants to have the whistle. It's probably the cheapest, best thing you can get for your money as a safety tool, yeah? The sound sweep, through the calibration, as I call it, we did in Cypress Bowl, was then written up as a paper. The paper was then included in the Justice Institute training manuals, and then it became commonly used throughout British Columbia. And I was quite pleased over the years that it's actually taken off around the world.
We've got a team going in for the middle area.
All of our active members have a ground search and rescue certification, and we do a couple years in a training program that brings us all up to the same speed for our really standard ground search and rescue. We call them ground pounder calls, and that is really the core and the bread and butter of the team.
So in cases where we have a non-responsive person, so either a deceased person or a person who's unconscious and unresponsive, or a person who for some reason just won't respond to us, we'll use what's called a grid search, and basically we're searching a grid type shape, and we'll line people up across a baseline and slowly move forward. That old technique of walking a compass bearing with a group of people and flagging your route is still a technique that it helps us to ensure that we've covered an area accurately and record that area, and kind of paints a picture for the next group that's coming in. They'll see our flagging and that, because if we just did it with GPS, like I say, it can be off at 3 meters or more, and that can throw off not only your alignment, but you can miss a fairly sized swath in thick forest. So, analog still works.
Julie's just going to put them on the map now.
They're upgraded. It is.
Yeah, copy.
Sartopo is a mapping application that we've purchased as a team, and it's really designed for tracking organizational responses on a map.
The tracking of the people out in the field is huge, so that in and of itself makes it very valuable.
So I'm just confirming their location.
Everybody sees all of the updates coordinated in real time. So it's a really helpful coordination tool.
Onto the Baden-Powell.
Once you start to enter a multi-day search, you need to start to be able to give assignments. So you need to be able to say, okay, Group A is going to search this area, Group B is going to search this area. Sartopo really helps facilitate that.
They're just farther northeast, about 200-300 feet.
Ross Montgomery was our representative for the South Coast region. He had a connection with Simon Fraser University. And somebody in the development park was interested in developing a personal locator beacon that we could use in search and rescue, because he was part of the SAR advisory committee. So they developed this. That was a turning point, that we now had something that could be set off by those people in remote areas. By necessity, we had to be forerunners and do things that other people hadn't thought of, because they don't have the volume and the pressure of finding a different method in which to locate people and help them.
He has a personal locator beacon.
Just coming up on it now.
Where are you injured? Just your hand.
They're on safety in the door. I got this. Breaking them in. All right.
The most satisfying part for me is when someone lets me know that they found someone using the technique. That just makes my day.